My name's Anne from Orchid Systems, and today I'm going to be running through Extender. For those of you who don't know a bit about our history, at Orchid we now have over 5,000 sites running our modules, and these sites are in over 60 countries around the world. On average, each site runs 2 modules. And we are supported by over 400 business partners around the world. We are based in Sydney, Australia, and have had over 10 industry awards for the modules that we write. At this stage, we have 13 integrated modules, and by integrated, I mean that they're developed in the Sage 300 SDK and support all the standard Sage 300 SDK tools that you would expect from a Sage SDK module. For example, that the modules will dump and load, that they will support the same reporting utilities, and they'll have integrity checks where appropriate, etc. We have been in business for over 25 years, and all our modules are about improving efficiency and productivity for Sage 300 users. I mentioned we had 13 modules, and they fall into these 5 broad categories. The first category, Collaboration Intelligence, we have Info Explorer, which is our drag and drop, slice and dice BI tool. We also have Notes and Document Management Link, which allow you to attach notes or documents to any field on any Sage 300 screen, so you can see the attached notes or documents in a context-sensitive way. In automation and productivity, we have Process Scheduler and Report Runner. Process Scheduler allows you to schedule the repetitive tasks in Sage 300 that can be time-consuming or can easily be forgotten, but which are necessary for the processing of your system. For example, running day ends, doing data integrity checks, opening and closing fiscal periods, etc. Process Scheduler allows you to do all these tasks after hours when the system is not busy. Report Runner allows you to create menus of crystal reports and financial reports, and to save the parameters and the way in which you run those reports. The crystal reports could be your own custom crystal reports, or it could be Sage 300 standard reports. And then Process Scheduler is able to refresh crystal reports and financial reports and distribute them after hours via email or by placing them on a network shared drive. In tailoring your system and integration, we have Extender, which I'll be going through in quite some detail, but we also have optional tables and data views. Data views speeds up and simplifies crystal reporting or Info Explorer reporting on Sage 300 optional tables. And optional tables allows you to extend the standard Sage 300 optional tables and to attach additional optional fields to other tables which do not support optional tables in Sage 300. Streamlining financial processes, we have EFT processing, inter-entity trade, and inter-entity transactions. With EFT processing, you can do customer direct debits, you can pay vendors via EFT transfers, and if you're using Canadian or US payroll, you can pay employees using EFT processing. Inter-entity transactions allows you to automate loan account entries between companies when they are doing transactions on behalf of each other. An inter-entity trade enables you to automate transactions when companies are trading with each other. For example, an AP invoice in one database can create a reciprocal AR invoice in a second database or in a second company. And in operations management, we have return material authorizations and repair tracking, which allows you to track, monitor, and apply workflow to returns as they come into the organization, and to track what is done to the returns and any fault codes or workflow stages or statuses that may be applied to the individual items on the returns. And finally, we have bin tracking, which allows you to subdivide an IC location and to keep quantities of stock per item, per bin, per IC location. enabling you to have better visibility of your stock at all times. But in this presentation, I'm going to be running through Extender. The business need for Extender is for all those customers whose requirements, either Sage 300 processes or integration requirements, cannot be met out of the box using Sage 300 core modules or Sage 300 core modules plus ISV modules. Often, if you're having to customize Sage 300 screens or tables without using a tool to speed up your efficiency with the SDK, you can find that customizations or validations or additional processes are very costly to implement, and most importantly, often need to be recompiled and reapplied when the system is upgraded, making it a high-risk endeavor to do. But using Extender and the way we've implemented Extender, we enable you to do more cost-effective customizations and automations within the system by making the customizations be applied company by company using a scripting language, which does not need to be recompiled between versions, and more often than not will just upgrade by installing the latest version of Extender. I'm going to run through the main editions and examples of what you can do with the main editions, the main 3 editions of Extender. And I'm going to start off first with the lowest level of Extender, which is the configurator. So the configurator, and it's referring to these orange cloud-like bubbles on the top of the diagram. So using the configurator, you can create your own alerts. And by alerts, we mean sending an email or creating an information manager note. You can log that changes are happening, and you can trigger to call external logic, for example, to do systems integration. Maybe you want to synchronize your vendor name and account, name and address details between Sage 300 and an external system. So the configurator version allows you to do alerts and logging to keep people informed, log changes, critical data that's changing in the database, log changes, who changed it, at what, on what date and time, from what value to what value, and also to facilitate a systems integration. The next level up of Extender is the customizer version. And now I'm talking about these green bubbles over here. So using the customizer version, you are able to provide additional automations, validations, security, or customizations of Sage 300. You can create new screens and new processes, and you can apply additional validation or security on existing processes. So in essence, you're tailoring the system to more specifically meet your needs. And an example of a validation might be that when the ship to address is entered, you want to validate the state, which is normally a free format text box. You might want to validate that the state is one of the 10 or 52 or however many states you have, that it's one of the valid states that in your region or that you deal with. Another validation could be that perhaps Anne, as a user, can change customers' credit limits, but only up to $10,000, whereas another user, maybe admin, can change the customer's credit limit up to $20,000. So you can create user-specific rules for particular users for particular fields. And an example of a process automation could be when you add a bill of materials item that has no stock onto the sales order, that you in the background immediately assemble, if you can, assemble the bill of materials item so it's available for shipping straight away. So those are examples of doing your own custom logic or screens and processes. And the language that we use to implement these custom processes and screens is done in Python. So Python is an open source language, which is open source, which is good for us because then we can put Sage 300 view calls into Python, so developers can use them just like they can in VBA scripts, just by using the Sage 300 objects without knowing too much about where the database is or what the company is. All they need to do is establish a session to the Sage 300 company and then access all the objects through the things they're used to doing, like browse and fetch on views. And the third level up is the developer edition. And that is these pink boxes down the bottom left-hand side. So using the developer edition, you can create Sage 3, you can create your own custom tables, which get correctly created in the Sage 300 company. They're added to the Sage 300 report dictionary. And most importantly, when you come to upgrade this particular company, let's say from version 2017 to version 2018, by installing Extender 2018, your tables will be upgraded just like all the core modules are upgraded using the newer version of each of the modules. When you create tables in Extender, Extender will create you a valid a view so that developers can then work with your custom tables just the same way as they work with all the other core module tables through the views in the Sage 300 core modules and any third-party module that develops through the SDK. So you could add a new table to RMA using the developer edition. And then you could write a custom script to run around the RMA screen to apply the logic that you have in this new parameter table. And all of these, so the configurator and the customizer and the developer, all of these features work at the Sage 300 business logic level. So what that means is if you apply a logging feature, for example, on the credit limit field, if you apply through the customizer, you say, I want to log when this field changes, whether the field gets changed by the user using the VB UI or using the web UI or doing an import export or their own custom macro, which accesses the customer view. Then when somebody changes the credit limit, it will be logged. So we don't have to write, or you don't have to write, different customizations for all the different ways that that customer view can be affected. Or for example, when you validate that the state is one of a list of, it's 52 different states, when you apply that to the ship to address view, then whether it's the ship to address is imported or updated through the web UI or updated through the VB UI or through a macro or through Sage CRM, for example, they will all be going through the views, and your single script that validates what the state is will apply to all those different access methods. So up until now, all I've been talking about is Extender working at the Sage 300 view level to implement your required logic. But in more recent releases of Extender in the last couple of months, we now enable you through a Python script, through an Extender script, to apply Python scripting on top of an OCX. So this is a VB UI that has been developed through the SDK. So I will be demonstrating this, how you can add, for example, a button onto the order entry screen when you need to do changes not on the order entry views, but when you need to interact with the order entry data sources on the VB screen. So you can now use Extender to do those customizations as well. And again, when you upgrade Extender, that script will upgrade and will apply to the next version of the VB UI without 99% of the time without having to do any modifications to the script unlike what you have to do today in recompiling your customizations to run in later versions. And down the track, when we've finished our own web UIs for all our own modules, we will then look at using Extender to modify the web UIs as well. But at this stage, it is still on our to-do list. So all what I've talked about so far is using Extender on its own as a standalone module within Sage 300. But if you use Extender with some of our other modules, for example, with Process Scheduler, what Process Scheduler Level 1 is able to do is schedule Extender scripts. So on the left-hand side of the screen, what I'm showing here is an email which resulted from a Process Scheduler scheduling a Level 1 script. And the Level 1 script is just designed to look at all the GL batches posted since it was last run, and if any, and for me, and to raise an exception if any of the conditions are met. And the condition that was applied in this particular script was if any single journal line to the inventory, so 13001 account, if any single journal posted to that account was more than $100,000. So in our case, it's an exception. Really, our purchase orders or our sales, etc. Normally, we would never do more than $100,000 in one single journal. So the script just runs through any journals posted affecting the 13001 account. If there's a line, a journal entry that is more than $100,000, then add a link through to the email. So it builds the email and adds a link onto the email for each journal entry that exceeds $100,000. And in the screen below, so the recipient of the email, let's say the financial controller, when they receive this email, they can just click on the blue hyperlink. Or if you look at the last line in the email, it's saying the GL account 13001 batch 280 entry 1. The amount is $130,000. And the recipient of the email, if they have access to Sage 300, can just click on that link. And if Sage is not open in the background, it'll prompt them to log in. And assuming they have the credentials to look at GL journals, then the appropriate GL journal entry screen will be opened with a link back to that particular GL batch. So using Orchid users, you can put hyperlinks in emails that takes the person straight back into the screen with the data record that you want them to look at without them having to log in and then find the GL journal entry screen and then search for the batch number and the entry number and so on. On the right-hand side is an example of a process scheduler scheduled script for collections management. And what this sample script does is run the AR aging for all customers. And if any customer is either over their credit limit or has an overdue balance, then it creates an email for the sales rep and says whether it's got an outstanding balance or if it's got an overdue balance, and then puts a hyperlink back into the customer inquiry for that particular customer. So the sales rep, on receiving the email, can just click on the hyperlink. If Sage 300 is not open in the background, it will open it, ask them to log in, and then open the AR customer inquiry and fill in the appropriate customer number so they can check other details they might need from the AR customer inquiry. So hyperlinks can be done to most inquiry screens on Sage 300. But you can also run Extender with Information Manager notes. So examples of that is if you look here on the right-hand side in this dark green box. So this is a note which is designed to run with the OE shipment entry. And when, depending on the customer that's active, it shows all the back orders for that particular customer. And by running a script which just a query script which just lists all the orders which are not yet complete for that customer. And in the second box down, we have an AR aging example. So for the customer that's on the OE shipment screen, it runs the AR aging view using the session date as your age as of date. So because I'm in sample data, everything's current, because the session date is 2018. And it shows all the transactions that make up each one of those balances. And where the links are in blue, they are hyperlinks, so you can double click on those. And in the order entry example at the top, it would open the OE order screen with order 63 in. And in the aging, it would open up a list of transactions that make up each of those customer balances. So using Extender with notes, you can then apply conditional notes or variable notes or notes that you only show under certain conditions. Or it's getting information from another part of the system, not necessarily what they're currently looking at. The one down below, the purple one down below, has been designed to provide a print and an email button if there is an invoice number. So if they've already issued the invoice, you could print it, which would file it away in the document management link path, so you can access that invoice without having to re-PDF it again. And email would email it to the customer based on the customer's preference of email addresses. So those are examples of using Extender with notes. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate the 3 different editions and the functionality you can achieve within the 3 different editions of Extender. I'm going to look at Configurator and show you the alerting and logging and systems integration side. Then I'm going to move on to Customizer and show you how you can implement some custom scripts, both for screens and for validation purposes. And then I'm going to show you a custom table and how we can use that custom table in implementing some custom business process within Sage 300. So just flipping into my Orc Limited. And what I'm demonstrating here is the 2018 sample data Orc Limited. So if you download our sample data, you will have all these scripts available, and you can, this demo is set up for you. So first I'm going to show you some of the features of Customizer. I'll show you, of Configurator. I'll show you them first in practice, and then I'll show you the setup behind that. So looking at my customer 1200, and just going on to the processing tab, you see that the credit limit is $18,000. And my note is saying the customer 1200, Mr. Ronald Black, the credit limit was changed from 19,500 to 18,000. It was done by admin doing an update, and it was just done a little bit earlier today. So this is an example. Nobody typed this in. This is an example of Extender creating an information manager note to display, perhaps not always on the customer screen, but perhaps on the order entry screen, to display the last time the credit limit was changed, who did it and from what to what. So if I change the credit limit maybe to 17,300 and click Save, the system's doing 3 things. It's updating this note, it's sending an email, and it's also logging the credit limit changing, because those are the events that I've created and attached to the customer view. I'm wondering if nope, it did manage to eventually send the email. And when you create an event, you can optionally choose whether this email just gets sent out without alerting the user that it's been sent, or you get a message that the email's been sent as like I'm showing here. So the email's been sent, and I will go into the emails and show that to you in a short while. And this note has been updated, although it hasn't been refreshed on the screen. So if I just close the note and reopen it, you can see the credit limit has changed from 18,000 to 17,300, and the time is now at 1924, which is the time here in Sydney at the moment. And it's also logged that change. So now I can go to the custom inquiry, or I can go to the printed report and print the log of changes, or I can call up the log from within context of where the change happened. So if I use the hotkey, which is backtick and tab, in a field that allows me to type that in, it by default uses the last calendar month, and it shows me all the changes that have been logged for the AR customer view that I'm on. So 1200. Who did the change, date and time, who did the change, and the user who did the change, and the value changed from 18,000 to 17,300, and then previously it was from 19,500 to 18,000, and so on and so on. And if I want to see more changes, I could change the date range and see all the changes, which I've mainly been logging the credit limit field, but I'm also logging the on hold flag. So when somebody puts the customer on hold and takes it off hold again. So those are three of the events that you can create. And how that was set up is in the event types. Previously, I would have created three events: create an information manager note, send an email, and log a change. So let's first look at log a change. So all you need to do is have an event, and its type is log a change. For the systems integration, the type would be run a program. For creating an email, it would be send an email. And for creating a note, it would be create a note. So to look at an example of the create a note, which we saw the note was changed. So that is set up in a similar way. You just need to say what note type you're creating, what the key to the note type is, and define the message of the note. So because I'm tracking on the customer view, I can use any field in curly brackets or curly braces from the customer view. So the customer 1200, Mr. Ronald Back, the credit limit is changed from, and if you put original underscore and then the field name, it will put the prior to update value in the email and then the after update value in the email. And then you can always put the user who did it, what type of operation, insert, update, or delete, and the date and time of that change. In a similar way, in creating the email, it's set up very similarly, except here you specify who you want to email it to. And you can have the same sort of controls and fields, access to the same fields as you have for your note in your email template. And the fourth type of integration, which I didn't demonstrate but just have talked to, is, for example, when you want to integrate the Sage 300 vendors, let's say, to an external system. So whenever I would then go and attach this event to the appropriate fields, and whenever anyone, because I've said combine, so whenever any one of the 10 fields that I attach it to get changed, then it will run this particular program to do my vendor integration. So once you've created your events, all you need to do is attach them to the appropriate view. So the AR customer view is the AR24, and I'll show you in a minute how you work out what view IDs you should be dealing with. But on the AR24, which is the customer view, on the credit limit field, we're logging an event. On the credit limit field, we're going to send an email. And on the credit limit field, we're going to create a note. And on the on hold flag, we're just logging an event. So you can attach the same event to multiple fields or multiple events to the same field. And in the field list, you've got access to all the fields on, in this case, the AR customer view, including you've got the ability to do something, or to track or log when the record is deleted, inserted, updated, or if you don't mind whether it's an insert or an update, you want to run the same event, you could use that one as well. So that the ability to attach predefined events of one of four types to existing views is the configurator version. But now I'm moving up to those green boxes or green clouds that we saw previously, and I'm going to talk about the customizer version. Because what the customizer version allows you to do is not only add events to your fields, but you can also add scripts to run when this view is accessed. And the script I'm going to demonstrate today, and there's some 30 sample scripts on our website, which you can download and apply to a company database, and or download Orc Limited, and you have all these scripts already applied. And this particular script that we're going to have a look at today is what's going to limit the customer's, what value the customer's credit limit can be changed to. Because as you know, if you've got the ability to amend customers, you can amend any field on the customer. But what this is doing is protecting to what? To the value or the limit of the customer's credit limit. So what we have done in Python, because it's an open source language, we have provided this ACPAC library, which does all the view operations and most of the, or all of the screen operations that you need to be able to do. So you include our library in your Python script, and then you can use all those functions just like you can use any predetermined Python function. So this particular script on before put, so before you write a value into the AR customer view, if the field that's changing is the credit limit, and if the user, didn't mean to minimize that, and if the user who's doing the change is admin, and if the value is greater than 20,000, give an error message and don't allow this to carry on. If the user's not admin and the value is greater than 10,000, give an error message and don't allow this to continue. So by applying this script to the AR customer view, and I can apply as many scripts as I want, and if it's important, the order in which they run, you could give a run order. So by applying a script to the customer view, now when I go and edit my customer using the VB UI, or if I was on the web screens and I did the same modification through the web screens, or if I go File Import, when I do when the field that's changing is the credit limit field, this validation is going to take place. So if I try and change it to 50,000, you'll see I'm getting this error message as if Sage was saying, this is not a valid number. And when I go close, it goes back to the prior value. Whether I do that from the web UI, an import, a custom macro updating the customer, or this VB UI, that single block of script that I showed you, because it's being applied at the view level, it is applying to everything that accesses the AR customer view. So that is really the customizer version, which is the ability to apply your own custom scripts to a view. And this could be any of the standard Sage 300 views, AR, AP, IC, OE, PO. Basically, when you click this finder, it builds a list of all the views, which are all the views from the modules that have been activated for this company. So certainly all the AR views, and as we scroll down, we'll get to see the AP views, common services views, sorry, APs above, common services, bank services, GL, ICO, EPO, etc., order entry, plus any third party that develops in the SDK. So for example, VI is Extender, and these VI views down here are my own custom tables. So these are all my own custom tables. So I could do logging on my own custom table, or my EFT tables, or my RMA tables, any Sage 300 view that's been developed through the SDK. You could do this custom alerting, or you could do apply custom scripts to change the behavior of the underlying view. And the third level of Extender is the developer edition, which allows you to create your own custom tables. So you can create as many tables as you want. And the table that I'm going to go through here is this one, the AR autofill optional field. And the business need or the requirement that we had was on AR items. Although you can have optional fields on the AR invoice detail level, you cannot have optional fields on the AR item and let them default onto the AR invoice. You can do that in IC and OE and things and modules like that, but on AR items you can't set up default optional fields. So the requirement was to have a table where they could specify the AR item number, the optional field, and then what value it must be defaulted to when you add that particular item onto the AR invoice. So you specify your fields and you specify how you want them to behave, maybe apply a mask if you want them to match the same mask as Sage 300 has, and it can automatically add finders for you. So when you use the automatic table editor, it will allow you to type in an AR item code, type in or find an AR optional field value, and then type in the value that you wanted to set on the AR item. But this screen, which which comes default with the product, is not smart enough to display back the name of the item or the name of the optional field. But you can do that sort of customization relatively easily using Extender as well, because the screen itself is created through Extender. So you can take a copy of that and add the features, which is exactly what we've done on this script here. So I have a script in this database which is allowing for the AR optional fields edit. If you edit this particular code, you will see it's the screen code required to create the screen to edit those particular fields. And this is one of the samples that is up on our website. So if you import this module, you'll get this particular table. But I'm not here for training, so I'll just undo that for development training. So I'll just undo that. But if you create a script, which is in fact a screen script, you can right-hand mouse button and add it to the desktop. And previously, I added this one to the AR setup. So I've got this screen here, the AR item optional fields. So when I run this screen, you can see when I identify AR item code, it will default for me what the name is. When I identify an optional field, it will tell me what that optional field label is, and then I can type in a value. So I've got the BK360 defaulting color red, the BK360 size being 15 centimeters, and the CA59, the default color is green. So the final piece of this jigsaw is in Extender onto the AR invoice detail. We've attached the script which defaults the optional field from our table onto the invoice detail. So feel free to download this and look at that code. But basically, it reads the table, the custom table. If the optional field, if the item exists there, then it will default the optional field values down. So if I go to an AR invoice, and I'll just open up this existing one. And go to add a new entry. It doesn't matter the customer because we haven't defaulted the optional fields based on customers. And if I was to add my BK360, and let's just go to the optional fields, you can see it's defaulted the color to red and the size to 15 centimeters. And if I add that and insert another row, and this time let's do the CA1, so the CA59, and when this one gets added, you can see the color defaulted to green. So Extender, to do this amendment, we did not need to amend this underlying screen. And those amendments would have happened whether I imported the invoice or whether I keyed it in through this screen or through the web screens. The defaulting would have happened for all three of those data entry methods. So now I'm just going to show you Extender working with notes. And I'm going to open up the order entry screen. And configured around the order entry screen for an existing customer and item, we've got a few scripts running, which shows different values from the sales history. So if I just step onto the first order. So here is my order details for customer 1200. And the first note here, you'll see it's got total sales of 24,860. And if I moved on to a different customer, their total sales would be displaying here. So Extender is able to run a query and format the data and display it in an information manager note. This one is showing me the quantity sold of the A11030 to customer 1200. So quantity sold, net sales, value, and calculated average price. And when I click on to my second item, you notice that stayed the same, but now I'm seeing the quantity sold of the A11050, quantity, net sales, and the average price. So notes on its own can show existing notes. For example, here's the note showing me changing the credit limit from 18,000 to 17,300. Although I didn't type it, it is a note that's in the database. So notes can show configured notes for a customer in this case. But what Extender can do is display on-the-fly information, which it's gathered at this point in time. Tomorrow when I run, possibly that would be a different number. Other examples of running Extender scripts is the AR aging and the back orders that we've got configured around our shipment entry. So just by double-clicking on our shipments and getting a shipment active. So this first shipment is for customer 1520, who currently has no back orders, but because my system date is 2018 and all the data is in 2019, we've got everything's really current and nothing's in any of the aging brackets. But if I look at vendor 1200, which is on the second shipment, we've got lots of back orders. If I double clicked here, it would open the OE order screen looking at order 1 or order 64. And here we've run the AR aging view and got back from that what's current and what's in these different aging buckets. And by double clicking on the aging bucket, we can see the invoices that make up that particular invoices and credit notes that make up that particular aging bucket. And double clicking again will open up the AR invoice entry screen with that particular invoice in focus. So the last example of an Extender script that I want to show you is the ability to change the VB screen, the VB UI. So I have a script loaded in Orchid 2, and this is not yet in the sample data. So this script will be going up onto our website pretty shortly, and it'll be in our next newsletter when we've loaded it up. But here, if I open the order entry screen in Orchid 2, and it's just a bit confused as to which company I'm in, so that we need to resolve. So what this particular Extender script is doing is running around the order entry screen. So it's running around a screen now, not around the view. And you can see, if I can just lift this up enough, it's able to add buttons. So we've added an add freight and a print and email of the order confirmation. And if I click, for example, the add freight, this was just customized to add a miscellaneous item charge at the dollar value of that, whatever's been set up for that miscellaneous charge. And if I was to click print an email, it would PDF the order confirmation and save it in the nominated directory for document management link and email it to the preferred customer's address. So that's really what I had planned to show you on Extender. And what I have run through is an example of the configurator where we logged and we alerted by note and by email. Did I ever show the email? I don't think I did. I don't think I ever went into the email to show you the email that got sent when we changed that credit limit. Has it maybe not come through yet? Because that was the one I did a little bit earlier today. So there's this particular email. You know, the 1200 Mr. Ronald Black credit limit has changed from 18,000 to 17,300 at 1924. So we've seen the configurator edition, sending an email, logging the change, and alerting via note as well. We saw the customizer edition, two examples or three examples of that. We saw the custom screen for the AR item optional field combinations and adding the second script, which added the default optional fields to the AR invoice entry. And we also saw the validation on the credit limit that it couldn't be more than $20,000 for admin. And we've seen an example of the developer edition, creating the table for the AR item and optional field combination. We saw the default screen as well as the customized screen. And that table, if we dump and load the database, that table will move across. And any developer accessing that table could use the automated view ID assigned by Extender to that particular table. And those fields would be in the Sage 300 dictionary for your crystal reporting or your Info Explorer reporting, depending how you need to access those particular tables. So while I'm waiting for questions, just to draw your attention that we have a number of videos on our video library. If you click through from our website, orchid.systems, click through to YouTube, you will see a number of different presentations and sales demonstrations for all our modules. And also in the Extender scripts, once you've logged in as a partner, if you click on the Extender scripts icon, you will see the 30 or so sample scripts that we have there. So I see one question coming in. Do I have to recompile the OCX between versions if I've added a button to the OE screen? So no, you don't have to. You don't have to do that because our scripts, we've done them in Python, because Python, you know, the version of Python that we're deploying is the scripted version, and because we're storing the script in the database of the company. When you upgrade Extender, let's say from 2017 to 2018, the scripts will get upgraded and reapplied to the underlying OE order OCX. So you don't have to do anything either for product updates or for version upgrades, unless Sage have changed the roto ID of that screen, in which case you'd need to change your script to reflect that particular roto ID. Another question here. Did I discuss what the runtime edition was? No, quite correct. I forgot to discuss the runtime edition. So on our edition guide, we do have a runtime edition, but this is geared for developers. So if you know, a developer has a module that they want to develop and they want to use Extender to create the tables, to create the views, and to create the screens, then and they have a business plan for that a module to be sold in multiple customer sites, then we do have a license which can be issued for one particular module for certified developers of Orchid's Extender. Another question is, do I have to import each script one by one into subsequent companies? Another good question. I did forget also to show you the module screen. So in Extender, you can either deploy your scripts one by one, and in the script screen import the scripts one by one, and if it's a single script standalone, then that's fine. But if you do have multiple scripts which are all associated with the same module ID, for example, this one, Orchid AR autofill optional field, here's the script that we applied to the AR invoice detail, and here's the script that was the screen, and associated with it was the table as well. So if all your objects, whether they be email messages, events, tables, or scripts, have the same module ID, the same prefix, then you can import and export them through the module screen. So you create yourself a module and you specify the module ID, Orchid AR autofill optional field. And as long as you prefix all scripts and events while you're creating them with that, then at a single button, you can export that or import that. So that is a .vi file, and it allows you to import multiple scripts and attaching scripts to views and events and email objects and note objects, and to import them and export them in one hit, either between your development environment and the customer or between databases on the customer, because all these modifications belong to an individual company and they're company specific, which means you could have slightly different versions or no version running in other companies, or the same version if appropriate, depending on what the company needs. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you very much for attending. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be distributing this recording tomorrow for all the registrants of this particular webinar. But if you go to our website and go to the YouTube channel, you'll see we've got 13 or 14 other webinars similar to this, which have been posted on that particular YouTube channel. So thanks very much for attending, and we hope to see you at the next one. Bye.